So, content creation. I think it'd be really interesting to know and to peek under the hood of both of our content creation strategies, what channels we're on, and what we hope to get out of churning out content. So, Ivy, I know you are really great at writing on LinkedIn and as well as you create content on other channels. Do you want to share like what platforms you're on and like how you're doing it?
Oh my goodness. I've dabbled in every platform and is probably like the worst example of what you should actually do because I'm still trying to be on every platform, and that's like usually the number one rule of content creation is you're supposed to focus on one channel first. And I'm good and bad, or I have cycles where I'm good and bad on different platforms. But I would say the main platform that I've been consistently on is LinkedIn. And that's where I've been the most successful. I have about 12,500 followers on LinkedIn, which is not huge. I think I'm one of the biggest voices, though, in the education space, but I didn't used to be in the education space. I started posting on LinkedIn very consistently in 2019 when I first went nomadic. And everywhere I went, I was interviewing entrepreneurs and tech professionals in different places, and I would share my learnings on LinkedIn. And that's where my initial following got built, especially when I was writing about China. And I think I mentioned on a previous episode, I wrote this article, went viral. Tons of people reached out from like India, Kenya, emerging markets in Southeast Asia, Egypt, etc. They all were China watchers and they wanted to know more about what I learned in China. And I think that kicked off my first amount of followers. I really started taking education content creation seriously last summer. At that point, I had about 5,000 followers. So 5,000 were from entrepreneurship, nomadic, career coaching. Sorry, I had a stint in career coaching. And I also probably grew I would say most of my audience, like probably 2,000, between 1 to 2,000. I was probably about entrepreneurship in the global world, etc. Then I probably grew to 5 to 6,000 by sharing like how to get a remote job, how to break into tech. And then I transitioned into education, and I've been posting pretty much every day with a 2-month break in between, but like almost for about 6 months. And I grew 7,000, which
And
honestly
are you using
isn't
a
too fast for my
scheduler?
niche. Oh, that's a great question. No, I have a content calendar on Notion.
Okay.
And now I realize that LinkedIn, I think it only recently came out with this, but you can schedule numerous posts just on LinkedIn directly, at least on desktop.
Okay.
So I've started doing that. So I schedule everything on Monday and I post every day. So that's a long-winded answer about LinkedIn. Because of that, it was really easy to also start on Twitter and to repurpose and to write new things. So everything I write that's new goes on Twitter. Twitter, you can post multiple times a day. And so now whenever I have like a thought, I put it into a Twitter scheduler. And the Twitter scheduler I use is called Typefully. It's $8 per month. So that's probably the easiest because it's just writing and there's not much that you really need. Other than that, I write articles pretty inconsistently, although I sold a company through my writing by taking a writing course. I've been on YouTube, dabbled there, posted like 8 videos, managed to get like 4,300 subscribers and monetized, stopped, and then trying to get back into it. And then TikTok, we're trying to grow for Asian Wonder Woman. I have my own TikTok that I haven't posted on for a while. And then Instagram, I've had my stints of trying to grow, but pretty much quit there too. I'm just like, I'm the worst. Don't follow this, but maybe I can share more later about what my ideal is and what I'm working towards now. After actually like honestly achieving like the mini successes on almost every single platform and then just kind of giving up before like really doubling down on it. But share, what platforms you're on and like what you're thinking right now.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I think like you're right in the sense where like content creation is hard because there's so many different channels to be on. But if you can get the strategy down, which is like you create content and then you like kind of like reformat it or like repackage it into the channels that like you're on, it works out really well. But obviously there's like a team behind it and we can talk about that as well. But for me personally, I think my focus is more on like Instagram, YouTube. I'm trying to build up like a newsletter for like Option Asia because I just come across a lot of opportunities in Asia and I want to like, build a subscriber list on that. But for Instagram, I actually ran a 30-day sprint for fun just to see if I could even do it, which is like you create a reel every day and then you post it. And so what I had been doing was creating like 1-minute videos around like what I was eating, like this interesting restaurant. I would like do it like I didn't actually schedule it like in advance. I would actually do it like day of, and that was pretty exhausting. But I would like create a script and then I would just do like a read over and then create it and then schedule it. So now I am trying to schedule it like in advance, but I did the sprint. Let me just give like the stats actually because I want to
I've
show
loved
you that
following
it
it
does work. Yeah,
on
it's
yeah.
like I think the hard part is like I don't know who I want my audience to be yet. And I think you and I have talked about this too cuz like
But you grew, right? Like I'm going to guess your stats as you're looking it up. Like I'm pretty sure you
okay.
grew about like 300 followers on Instagram ish.
Yes. Roughly. Yeah, actually 362.
Oh, look at me. I follow you so
Yeah,
closely.
that's pretty yeah. Within that month, I gained 362 followers. Accounts engaged or accounts reach was pretty interesting. It was like 138,000. So meaning like people like
Yeah, you had some
those
viral
different types of
reels.
accounts.
And like just for
Yeah.
context for everyone else, like 300 something might not seem like a lot, but you only had like under 1500 when you first started, right? So that's like 20 to 25% growth, which is
Yeah.
huge for just a month. And actually think those results just show that if you double down on anything, if you really take it seriously,
Yeah.
which is really
Yeah.
hard, right?
So
It's not hard.
obsessed.
Like you know what to do, but it's really hard to like execute on. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what really elevated my game was just like learning how to use CapCut. So I was like pretty like
Yeah. I've been
against
raving
using
about
anything
that.
like yeah. I was like, I don't want to use TikTok. I don't want to use CapCut. Like I was so against it. I don't know why and what for. But I just elevated like my editing skills and like now I can like crank out a reel in like 2 minutes if I have the right content. So yes, on Instagram. And then YouTube, I have like roughly like 5,000 something subscribers. YouTube is where I actually make money from like partnerships, content partnerships. So I create a video once per week, like long form, and I'm gonna outsource that onto to someone on Fiverr and just pay them to help me edit. And then every single reel I've been creating, I post it as a short on YouTube. And then you and we should talk about like the TikTok experiment we're running right now. Do you want to explain
Yeah.
it?
So sure. So obviously we're like looking for more distribution for this podcast, for our newsletter, for our Facebook community, right? Like none of these things naturally grow because they're all like newsletters are private audience. Like we need to collect it. People don't really find out about our newsletter unless someone refers them. Same with like a Facebook community. Like it's not discovery based. And I think for those new to content creation, it's pretty important to know like what is discovery based and what's kind of like owned content, like distribution versus owned. That's how I bucket it. On TikTok and on Instagram Reels and on Twitter and LinkedIn, etc. It's a way to distribute your content for it to reach more like a greater audience in order for them to then go somewhere else, which is usually your newsletter, your podcast. Podcast has some discovery aspects, but like not great. And then your Facebook community. So a lot of what we're good at and what we're doing have been like harder for people to find without creating content separately on. And like TikTok is actually one of the easiest ways to go viral right now because I don't know if it's like algorithm of like the way that it's showcased. It's not really a feed. People don't really go on your profile and scroll through everything as much as like people are on their discovery feed. On Instagram, you usually follow people that you know versus on TikTok, you are mostly seeing content from people you don't know as well as people you know too. I came across this account called Internship Girl because I was building internship programming for kids for my company at Prequel, and she grew her account to over 100,000 followers in several months by literally having videos of her face. Not even her, she wasn't even talking. She's just kind of like as if like she's kind of checking herself out. And then she would
Yeah.
put like text over the entire screen, like over her face. And it would be like a template of like an email on how to get an internship or like her sharing like what high school students should do to find like a internship or like actually internship opportunities that she found online, etc. But like she's not talking at any of them. She's not following some kind of trend. It's literally her checking herself out through a selfie camera.
And it's like why is that so appealing though, right? Like why do people consume that content then?
So
Is
I
it
think
because
why it works now is because
Mhm.
previous to around, I would say we're a little late to this trend. That's why I'm a little bit worried. As of now, we only have like 16 followers and we've posted like 20 TikToks
Yeah.
right now. So I don't know if we're late. Who knows? I think it's like worth to keep trying. But why I think people are consuming this kind of content is because TikTok used to be a place where it's all kind of junk, or it's like people talking, etc. And people talking is kind of exhausting to listen to, especially Gen Zs and even millennials now. As we like watch a lot of content, we don't want to watch the entire reel. Like I just want to
Yeah.
like if it's an
You just want to
educational
consume
thing,
it.
I just want the education in as short of a time as possible. Just like you don't want someone to actually call you, you would rather get a text message, right? To like deliver the message in as
Yeah.
short and concise and like low effort to intake way as possible.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that right now, I think, is literally reading in 100. Like it's a tweet,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It's a tweet
Mhm.
with your face in the background. So it's still like in video form. And I looked at Internship Girl's TikTok account, and the ones with her face and text written over it versus the ones without her face, the ones with her face do better. And I don't know why that is, but I think it's because on Instagram and TikTok, there's an appetite for actual information, and the lowest effort of consumption is actually just reading it on the screen.
Yeah. Well, I think going back to your point about like why her face does better, I think it because it actually humanizes the video itself. Though she's not talking, it's like you're just reading it from like her voice in your head.
I don't think she has a filter
But
on.
that's so
I mean, it's
strange.
honestly, her account's great. Like the
Yeah.
information's awesome. I used to be a career coach. It's great. We're just like, so we're not
We're
shaming.
just
Like,
experimenting.
we're just
We're
surprised that it
experimenting.
works because we're gonna do it. Like we're literally copying this style right
Yeah.
now, and we'll report back in a few episodes if it works. Yeah.
I think by then we'll have like 49 or 50. Yeah, we'll have like 50 videos out by then on that TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our strategy here, and for Prequel, we run creator programs. So we've actually studied a lot of this on like how people grow on different platforms. And the best platforms to grow on right now are Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Instagram is actually really difficult to grow because it's super saturated number of posts. And like the way that algorithm works of prioritizing people that you're already following, right? So for TikTok, obviously we're like a travel group, seems very natural to go on that. It's definitely easier to get started. You can get started with 0 followers versus on LinkedIn and Twitter. You kind of had to have someone with a bigger following engage with it, because what makes Twitter and LinkedIn good is that when someone engages with it, their followers will also see it on their feed. Versus TikTok just like shows this randomly based on what I think TikTok thinks you're interested in. And that's why we chose TikTok. But for TikTok, in order to grow, we did like study this across several accounts, is you have to post 7 times a day. And that's what the top brands do to really kickstart. And it does take several weeks, but we've really seen like 14-year-olds do this, where there's one of them is just evaluating movies, another one's like showing her digital art, and after 8 weeks they like have grown to like 2K, 10K, 20K kind of followers. So they kind of use the strategy too of mostly just like text over some kind of video. So I am hopeful. But versus LinkedIn and Twitter, LinkedIn's just once a day, Twitter's like 3 times a day, and you should be able to like 2x at least your audience in 1 to 2 months.
I think for context too, like Ivy and I are in different time zones. So I'm posting during my time in Asia. Ivy's posting her time in the US or in Canada. Yeah. So it works out really well.
Yeah, I was like, let's talk about content strategy in general, right? Like for Asian Wonder Woman, I think there's a few points of like content creation that is just important to touch on, right? Like in terms of strategy, there's like creating usually a pillar content that you can then repurpose to different pieces of content. So the way that we're coming up with our TikTok like liners over our faces and our travel videos is things that we're already repurposing from our newsletter, which is like visa information. What else is there? Emily, you write most of the newsletter.
Events. Yeah. News, travels, like trends.
How to
Things
get a remote
like for us
job.
to do. Yep. Job opportunities,
Yeah.
visa opportunities.
Yeah. So we basically take like one of the articles in our newsletter and we like turn into 5 different snippets and we put that over our faces. So like, you know, that our newsletter goes out bi-weekly. You can sign up at asianwonderwoman.substack.com or find it on asianwonderwoman.com. And there's like tons of travel info, tons of like entrepreneurship, remote work, meetups, what's happening in the community, the best advice, etc. And we just like turn that into TikToks. We're repurposing from our feature Fridays of who's in the group, what we already have on Instagram. We're rewriting it in different ways, trying to follow trends. But in the end, like usually like this podcast, we will have the transcript and a lot of it will, you know, we're going to cut snippets. We're going to go on YouTube. Like you try to turn one piece of content into multiple different ways. And your pillar content is usually writing, YouTube, or podcast, right? So I think that's kind of part of our strategy. Emily, I know that like you mostly YouTube but you treat YouTube and Instagram separately, right?
I
Like
do.
your content's
Yeah.
not the
I
same.
think, yeah, it's definitely, it varies because I think my audiences on Instagram and YouTube are going to be different. But before I forget this like thought in my head, for Asian Water Woman, what I like to do as well is get user generated content. So that's why you see a lot of like collab posts between like our own members as well as like our own channel. And that's because once it's collaborative, it gets sent to like that Asian Wonder Woman's audience as well. And like, I feel like it just does so much better. And I think it's almost like a stamp of like verification, like, hey, there are actually women in our community that are doing like badass things and they're creating content and it's associated with our brand. So I like doing that a lot. And so if you go through our reels, you'll see a lot of like women talking about their lives and stuff. But back to like YouTube and Instagram. Yeah. Because YouTube came from like my life in Singapore, right? Like it's a bunch of people who are interested in like living in Singapore. A lot of are interested in like remote working and whatnot. I'm thinking of changing my YouTube channel into something more educational, like resource enriched, rather than like my life, like vloggy lifestyle kind of things.
Like more for
And then
Option Asia.
Instagram. Yeah, I think so. Like more of a blend. So Option Asia won't have its own YouTube channel, most likely. It will be more of like, I guess, included in like the Fangirl. I still haven't found the right strategy, though. YouTube right now is going to be a mix of like informational interviews as well as like how tos. And then Instagram is like just my personal brand. I am just shit posting right now. Like this cat video went viral and it was like me petting a cat. And I was like, I don't understand
Yo, there's
social
a
media.
cat video. There's a cat trend that we need
Yeah.
to follow on TikTok. It's literally of a
It's
cat,
on a
like,
building.
yeah, like it
He's
like
like,
rises
boom,
up or
boom.
something. It's like on Emirates did it, and then some like bank did it. Yeah, we're gonna use it for like beta camp and prequel. But yeah,
Oh,
like
really?
people really
Oh,
like
yeah.
watching cats. I don't even understand. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're definitely all figuring
So
it out, you know. But like, I really think
yeah.
you're making it. Speaking for someone who hasn't
Fun.
also figured it out, but like, I think you're making it harder for yourself by
Oh,
like not having it
oh,
kind of connect.
like
But
included.
we talked
Yeah.
just last 2 days ago when we were
Yes.
supposed to podcast but didn't, where I was like, hey, like, why don't you build Option Asia under your personal brand instead of making its own Instagram? What's, you
Yeah.
know, the strategy
Reason.
behind having different Instagram accounts for different things that we're building? And now you're telling me, hey, like, I'm gonna make Option Asia my personal YouTube, but it's gonna get connected to Option Asia Instagram. Like,
No, I've been like, okay, how do I explain this? So I want Option Asia to stand alone on itself, right? As like an Instagram brand. But then I think the content that I get from like that Instagram handle, I will include it in as like my YouTube channel. So it's like a first narrative. Like I'm still going to be talking about like how to find jobs and like how to live in Asia on my personal channel, but it won't say like Option Asia. It's just going to be like me talking about it. Whereas like Option Asia, like if I grow it and like there's a huge following, I could probably just sell it on its own in the future, but it still won't be like associated with my personal brand on YouTube, if that makes sense.
so I actually
Just
have
like,
a suggestion.
yeah,
Like, I was actually just catching up with a friend. His name's Ricky, and his Instagram's, well, he has his own, Ricky Zhang, and Prince of Travel. So he runs a blog, a very profitable blog, which does
mm-hmm.
reviews of luxury travel, like business class flights, first class flights, luxury hotels, etc. I think his like he called me from like Bora Bora, I want to say, and now he's in Auckland. Like, he just travels full time, and lives in the most luxurious places. He says he books some of them on his own dime or his company's dime, but it's like expenses travel because his whole thing is to, you know,
Yeah,
lucky him.
to
That's
travel.
awesome. But he has two YouTube channels. He has one that's the Prince of Travels, which is his company, and one of his own. And the Prince of Travel one, his reasoning behind two YouTube channels is similar to yours, right? Like, Prince of Travel is its own brand. Eventually, it's going to be multiple creators. So it's not just going to be him talking. Right now, it is still him talking. And then it's his own personal brand, which is more of like vlogging and having that. And like, you need them to kind of feed off of each other. And today I was looking at, so I signed up for Ali Abdal's YouTube course. So another course I'm taking, I want to kickstart my YouTube and also prequels YouTube, etc. But I looked at one of the agencies Ali Abdal works with, and one of the other clients that this agency works with is the CEO of Speechify, I want to say. Yeah, Speechify, and the CEO's name's Cliff Weitzman. And like, that agency manages the CEO's personal brand, which is about entrepreneurship, how to build a great company, and that play and Speechifies his company. And the company really only has a Twitter account, but then the YouTube account is under Cliff. So I do think that it's very natural for it to play off of each other, because I'm definitely going to have a joint prequel YouTube where it's going to be multiple creators. My program directors, people who teach the programs, are also going to create content on it. And then I can teach entrepreneurship separately as well and like document my journey building a company. And it just gives it way more legitimacy. So I think that's part of my strategy going forward. Just like Asian Wonder Woman is separate, but I know that like it will help both of our personal brands, and our personal brands will drive traffic to Asian Wonder Woman as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of thinking of it. And I think, like, personally, I do want to be attached to certain brands, but when that time comes and I'm like, let's say Option Asia does really well, and I'm like, okay, it's like, 3 years in, I don't want to be doing this anymore, then I would want to be able to like hand it off to someone else without my face being all over it, if that makes sense.
And that was actually one
Yeah.
of the biggest factors in like of selling my company Beta Camp. It's because my face wasn't on it. It's just an entrepreneurship program for kids, and I was very, very conscious about that. And in a mastermind, a creator mastermind that I'm part of, other people who want to sell, they're the face of their brands. Like their whole company
Yeah.
is just around them coaching others. And the first thing they
Yeah.
always need to do is like, how do I detach myself? How do I not need to do everything? How do I bring someone else in to help? And that's always like a big struggle. So starting with that intention can really help your like media business down the line.
Yeah, agreed. And I think there's a lot of power within having a lot of content creators underneath like one brand as well, just because of like by association and by like number of like followers and like the influencer like following. But like going back to the point of like, why are we doing this, right? Like, why are we churning out content? Why are we spending so many hours on like writing or like, making videos and stuff like that? Like, I guess what's your end goal, if there is an end goal? And like, I'm trying to figure out when I would be happy. Like, at what number would I be happy with? And like,
No,
where I'm
that is
going with
not
it,
the right way to
right?
think about that. It's not,
Or like,
it can't be about the number. At least that's what
yeah,
like all the creators tell me, right? Like you don't need a
yeah,
big number in order to make a lot of money, right? The
yeah,
1,000 true fans kind of goal. Like if your goal is to make money, you don't need it. If you're just trying to express yourself, you shouldn't care about the numbers.
yeah.
There's literally no reason why you should care about the numbers.
It's
Other
tough
than
though
for your
because like
ego.
okay, yes, for my ego, but two, the second part is also just like, is my content interesting enough that people want to stay subscribed to it? I think that's where it is. It's not like, oh, I want to be like, I want to
That's
be famous
retention
and
rate
have like a
though.
million
That's
followers.
retention
Yeah.
and engagement rate, not how many subscribers you have, I think.
But I
And you
guess like
can't,
if someone
what are you
subscribes to
going to
you,
do? Like,
that's
you're
like
going to lose people if you're
engaged.
like, oh, I'm going to be happy at like 100,000, you know? No one,
No, but the thing is
no,
like,
the
what
goal
is the
is
goal that
always
I'm working towards? What is the goal that I'm working towards, right?
your short
Like,
term goal, not your long term goal.
yeah.
Are you
Oh,
going to quit
yes, yes, yes,
YouTube
yes.
after you get 100,000? Like,
No, no, no.
you're going to keep
Obviously
going.
not. But it's more of like having something to be like, oh, once I hit this, like I will feel like, like, because right now it's like I'm just creating content all the time and it just feels like this hamster wheel and there's like no end. So I
Girl,
think
when
I
has
need to
like
figure out what I'm looking forward to.
outside of content creation, have you ever had a goal where you're like, if I have this much money in my bank account, or like if I have this many friends, or if whatever, I'll be happy? Like, has that ever worked for
Maybe
you?
not friends, but maybe like money. I think I was like, if money would have been like, oh, okay, then I can like not cruise, but I could chill for a little bit. Let's not talk about like the money part, but I'm saying like for me, like I'm creating content, like I want to be able to measure the results. And it's not like, oh, I want to be famous, like, oh, I want like a million like followers, but it's like I want to hit maybe like 10K on YouTube. And like then I would be like, okay, that's like a point where I'm like really proud of myself. It doesn't mean I'm going to quit YouTube. It's just more of
Right.
like
When can
a
you be proud of
significance.
yourself?
Yeah. I
I
know
already
it's
think
kind
that
of
you
toxic, right?
should
I
be
guess this is
proud of yourself. Like,
I know in
you
general.
showing up every day, like you should be proud of the inputs as well, because like oftentimes you can't control the outputs, right? Like, do you want to create content because people like that topic, or do you want to just create for you and what you want to create? And usually you creating for yourself works, right? That's what you did on Instagram, and that's how you managed to like do a 1 month sprint. And like what holds a lot of people back from like creating content is because they're like thinking too much about what someone else wants. I really think creators is like you do it as a self-expression as well, and like things
But
that you want to give out to the world.
I want my content to be like actually helpful and educational. Like I want it to be valuable. Like I just don't want to like put out content out there because I'm like, oh, like I'm just doing it for the sake of it. Like I actually want like the feedback, which is why I feel like subscriber numbers are indicative of like if my content is good, because like getting one subscriber on YouTube is actually really hard, right? Like I don't subscribe to
Mm-hmm.
people, and it's like it just takes a lot of effort. So yeah, I guess I see it more of like, is my content valuable enough that someone would be willing to like actually click that subscribe button and like go along the journey? Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, people celebrate milestones. Just make sure that you celebrate, right? Like you get the
yeah.
10,000, 50,000, 100,000, right? Like I think it's the
Yeah,
continuous improvement in the journey. Yeah, I, I,
but
I
I
think you
do
should be happy
agree.
with what you have right now too. Like you've already grown to five. Like being able to monetize, I really think is always the initial goal, right? Like because YouTube set that artificial thing of like, okay, like 4,000 subscribers, 1,000
4,000
watch hours.
subs. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, we
yeah.
both passed it. Like so,
I
you know,
know.
you
Though,
kept going, I just stopped after I hit it. So that's the thing, right? Like, but I was actually never like, oh, if I monetize, I'll be happy. I just like got
yeah.
busy and it like was no longer priority. And that's I think what I'm trying to figure out of like how do I make content creation kind of like more of a priority. So for me, I create content like for my company, I create a lot of content on like education and the goal is to sell more courses, right? It's to draw
Mm-mm.
parents and students in, help them recognize that like we're trustworthy and we teach amazing concepts that really help students succeed, and a lot of that is thinking through what content would fit that marketing funnel, and I think
Mhm.
that's what a lot of creators create content for. Like rarely is it just like influencers who, I mean, if you want to look in the
Just for
business side, right,
influencing.
like you're going to have to look past sponsorships. That's like
Yeah.
the level one. But then after that, like you can sell your own stuff. There's so many different ways to monetize. Like you can consult, which you're already doing, right? Like you can sell a physical product, you can sell an online product, you can do a service that's separate. Like, yeah, run events. I guess that's a product too. And you can have a product and service. For me, why I think no matter where you are, like what I'm trying to do with my personal brand is how do I build a group of people that just likes me, or like for Asian Wonder Woman that
Mm.
just likes me and you. That's the point of this podcast, right? Who just like wants to follow us and not the advice that I'm giving, because that feels more brand like. And maybe that's what you're going with for Option Asia. It's like if you're interested in
Mhm.
this, you should follow this for advice. That's what I'm trying to do with like Prequel. And then, but for my own brand, I hope that my audience will just like evolve with me.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah,
always
I
easy
love
to sell
that.
to like an own newsletter list or something, just like to build it and to be able to deliver value and like know my own audience and tribe really well over the years. That's what I really admire from a lot of top creators, that they're able to really like connect and like know as if like that kind of customer persona, and like you just have this tribe with you, and like you have meetups like an Asian Wonder Woman, but also you're able to like know their problems, know their dreams and goals. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it says a lot when you are able to create content and it speaks to people, no matter like what age, like what background they have. And because we are all human and we go through like the same similar experiences. So if you do create content like that and people relate, then I think that speaks volumes. So I hope we do that more with Asian Wonder Woman. I'm actually really happy with where we are at. Like I know a lot of communities, they are like,
We've come so far.
yeah, we have come so far. Like I know a lot of communities are like, oh, they're like at 100K, but like I go into their communities and like they're literally just selling themselves, and it's there's no engagement. No one like, actually takes the time to respond to comments and whatnot, or like no one creates content for that community. Whereas like ours is more small, more niche, more intimate. Like we know a lot of people on a first name basis. So I'm very happy with where we are at with Asian Water Woman. So yeah, again, like Ivy mentioned, please take a look at the Substack newsletter, asianwonderwoman.substack.com newsletter. I think I'm going to wrap up this episode, but Ivy, is there anything else you want to just leave for regarding like content creation?
I mean, I'd love to hear actually what
Mm.
whether everyone wants us to talk more about content creation, because I think there's actually a lot more to say, of like
Yeah.
going deeper into our strategies on different platforms, like developing own content, building like how do we come up with content ideas, building a second brain,
Mm-hmm.
like I actually am a friggin' content machine right now in terms of ideas. Like writing 3 tweet
Yeah.
threads per day and then like coming out with like weekly either YouTube video or blog is like, it actually takes a lot of reading. It's all about input. And so I mean, I'd love to do an episode maybe on where we get our input of ideas and information so that we can generate good output. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to hear in the comments.
Yeah, reach out and let us know. We always want feedback too. But that sounds like a great episode. We can do like one on like ideation and like how we create like a pool of ideas. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys found this interesting and helpful. Hopefully, if you're creating content as well, please share with us. Or if you are an Asian Wonder Woman, also do a collaborative reel with us, and would love to see your content.
Oh yeah,
soon.
wait. Before we end, we have a content creators chat in our Facebook group, Asian Wonder Woman, and I actually think we can turn that more into a what are those called? Like a content, like a traffic
collaborative,
group.
like
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, let's do that. That's a good note. But yeah, like, so if you're a content creator yourself or want to be, we have a community of women who are in our Facebook group. So make sure you join that. Have a good night, morning, good day, Emily.
Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone.
I'm the baddest chick. I'm not a sick. I'm about my business.